discussion about art and advocacy. I'm Mari Watanabe. I am the Executive Director of a nonprofit called Partners in Diversity. We're based in Portland, and I also run the Leadership Portland class for the Portland Business Alliance. I'm also a member of the board of the Cultural Coalition of Washington County. So I'm very excited to be here with 5 awesome panelists in the arts, and they're each going to talk about their projects. So this is a partnership between the City of Hillsboro Cultural Arts Program and Tualatin Valley Creates, which is a nonprofit organization working to build community through the arts in Washington County. I want to thank a couple people first. So Melissa Moore, are you here? Oh, there she is right in front. It's hard to see with all these spotlights. So she is with the City of Portland, and then Cindy Dower over here at this table with Tualatin Valley Creates, and Eric Swires, who is the cameraman tonight. So he is recording this, and that we'll be able to use later. And he is also a board member of Tualatin Valley Creates. So before we start, I do have one announcement that I want to make. So Tualatin Valley Creates, they have received grant funding for a program development to create an arts and culture leadership program to inspire a new generation of skilled arts advocates. So the proposed audience is underserved groups in Washington County. This might include people who are not white, people who live with disabilities, people under the age of 35, and people who are LGBTQ. So if you are a member or know somebody who is, we would like, Cindy has a sign-up sheet that she will pass around, and if you would, they'd like to talk to you because they would rather design a program that they think people would need and so they'd like to hear from all of those people. So if you know of anybody, tell Cindy or sign up and be a part of this. So that's great. We know leadership programs. So the goal of this event is to highlight some of the work that is being done around Washington County by individuals and groups who are using art as a medium to create deeper connections in the community, promote practices and ideas that lead to more equitable communities, and advance social change. So I would like to get started with the panel discussion. So how the panel will work is I will introduce each panelist. They will have 2 minutes to provide an overview of their program, and I think each of them brought a slide so that you have a visual. Then we will deep dive a little deeper into some specific questions, and then after the questions, we will open it up to all of you to ask questions. And because we only have an hour, we will not, if I ask a question, not each panelist will not answer the question. We'll have maybe 2 or 3 of them answer each. So I'm going to start with my person to my right. So Eduardo Cruz Torres. He's an artist who recently worked with the GLEAN program, Make Art Not Landfill, in partnership with Metro, Recology, and Crackpots. Eduardo is a self-taught artist who works in a variety of mediums, including metal etching, metal engraving, pyrography, which is wood burning, rock engraving, glass engraving, and black ink. He is an active member of the Portland Latino Artists Exchange, and his work has been shown in individual and group shows around the Portland metro area and can now be seen at the RJ Gallery in McMinnville. So, Eduardo, can you please provide us a brief overview of your recent work with the GLEAN program?
Sure, thank you, Mary. And I'd like to thank Melissa and Tualatin Valley Creates and Cindy for having me here tonight and all of you attending this panel. So what the GLEAN program is a program that if you get a residency for 5 months, they say 6 months, but it's more like 5 months, you get access to the Portland transfer station, better known as the dump. And you just go and get your materials. So you have to complete a minimum of 8 pieces of art in that period of time. If you can complete more, that's good with them. And then they put up an exhibition and you get 80% of whatever you sell there. So they just keep a little bit of money and keep a lot. So it's very, very good for artists. You know, so another thing is that Recology and Metro, they keep each one of them, they keep one of your pieces to, you know, for probably a certain a period of time, probably a year. I think it's a year. They keep that and they display it into different galleries. So it's a pretty cool program. I would encourage every artist in the Clark, Washington, and Monoma County to apply. And plus, you get if you get the residency, you get $2,000. So pretty cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you again for being here, and I'll share a little bit more about my experience there in a few minutes.
Great, thank you. Our next panelist is Paolo Esteban. Paolo is a founding member of the Beaverton Diversity Advisory Board and helped to establish the popular Beaverton Night Market. Paolo immigrated to Beaverton, Oregon from the Philippines when he was just 7, and he is now the equity specialist for the Beaverton Mayor's Office. He has made his mission to ensure Beaverton is increasingly inclusive and responsive to issues facing historically marginalized populations. So Paolo, tell us a little bit more about the Beaverton Night Market and what the program is all about.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? It's good. Thank you so much for having me here. So that's the Beaverton Night Market. This actually started as a product from the Diversity Advisory Board for Beaverton. So just for context, the city of Beaverton has about 16 different boards and commissions. And so this one specifically, the Diversity Advisory Board, I'm also going to say DAB because I like acronyms and so does the rest of the world, I think. The DAB, the purpose of DAB is to advise city staff, council, and the mayor on incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion in their daily regular practices and policies as well. And so they have 8 key priority areas and that they focus on, and one of them is economic opportunity. And so that's what this, the night market originally started as, was opportunities for minority-owned business owners to, to develop their business. And so on top of that as well, we have many board members who come from Southeast Asian countries, and in those countries it is very popular to see other night markets as well. That it's a place where you can buy different cultural foods and artifacts, but it's also a place where even if you don't have a dime to spend, you just go to hang out. So we wanted to really develop and highlight that culture in Beaverton, and it's our 3rd year that we've done it, and it's been awesome. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later as well.
Great. Thanks, Paolo. Next is Bernie Sims. Bernie helped organize the Sherwood Community Art Project and is the chair of the Sherwood Cultural Arts Commission. After a successful career in sales and marketing and sales operations, Bernie retired in 2016. His interest includes the arts, the environment, and social justice. He also volunteers with the Nature Conservancy and the Democratic Party of Washington County. He's a musical performer, songwriter, and producer, and has produced 2 CDs of his own material. Bernie, please tell us more about the Unity Project in Sherwood.
All right, so I want to pass along my thanks as well to Cindy for inviting me, and it's a delight to be here to share the story we have. A couple of years ago, we had a wonderful manager of our Cultural Arts Commission and our Arts Center in Sherwood named Maggie Chapin, and we were looking for some kind of an idea to pull the community together. People were feeling a little riled in the middle of 2016. It was a rather turbulent year, like the inside of a washer and dryer, it felt like. And we came across this artist named Nancy Belmont in Alexandria, Virginia, who had come up with this idea called the Unity Project. And I'll real quickly try to go through and describe how this worked with us. They've done this in several cities across the country. There's a website that describes it, the Unity Project. It breaks it right down to all the materials you have to have, all the effort needs to go into it. What it amounts to is you get 32 large PVC poles that are about 8 feet high. You arrange them in a large circle. And for each one of those, you put a little sign at the bottom of it that's called an identifier. There's 32 identifiers. Those identifiers are things that our Arts Commission decided what those would be. I identify as being LGBTQ. I am a veteran. I am retired. I am a student. I am spiritual. I am a religious person. A variety of things. And we came up with 32 of those things. So when people would come to this, we set it up. It was a temporary exhibit for a week. It was right in downtown Sherwood. People would come, we'd give them a ball of yarn, part of a skein of yarn. Skein? Is that what it's called? A skein of yarn. And what they would do is they would have a listing of all those identifiers, and they'd mark down each of those that were theirs, and then they would go out and what we call tie off to the pole that had the identifiers that they related to. So every person might have a different number of identifiers they related to. But over the course of a week, we had over 500 people do this, and we ended up using 184,000 feet of yarn, which coincidentally is exactly 31 miles, which is exactly how far I am from home in Sherwood to be here tonight, which is kind of eerie and bizarre. And it's Halloween. I mean, it's just weird. But we had so much fun with this, and in the end, we ended up with this huge, big canopy over the top of it. And it was really an amazing thing because each string, each piece of yarn literally represents one person in one aspect of their life going out to that pole and back. So when you multiplied it times 500, you got this great canopy of color, and when you stepped away from it, you kind of saw our community. So we'll talk a little bit more about it, but that was unity.
Great. Thank you, Bernie. Next, we have Yasmin Rubalcaba. She is the Problem Play Project Manager for Bag and Baggage Productions and also works for Advanced Gender Equity in the Arts in Portland. She graduated from Williams College in 2017, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Latinx Studies, and was active in the theater community. During her studies, she noticed the lack of diversity and representation within the theater community. Thank you for joining us, Yasmin. Can you please give us an overview of the Problem Play Project and what are you working on there?
Yes, hi. Thank you again to everyone for allowing me to be here today. It's wonderful to be able to talk about this project and what we're doing. A quick little sentence about how I ended up here in the first place is I was first working for this other organization, Advanced Gender Equity in the Arts, which I'm still working for, but I got to meet Scott, who is Artistic Director of Bag and Baggage. And from there, I really got invested in this Problem Play project. So this project, pretty much, Bag and Baggage, for those of you who don't know, do more classical work. That's their, literature, but they always find a way to revamp it, to do something a little bit different, apart from keeping it classical. So they recognized that their space was not very diverse and, in a way, not very welcoming because of it. So they decided to take an initiative to change that. And they applied for a grant that awarded them a certain amount of money to commission a local playwright of color to take a Shakespeare play and create a modern day adaptation of it. So this year, Carlos Trujillo, who's actually a native from Hillsboro, was selected as a playwright, and he's working on rewriting A Winter's Tale into a Cuban American story. So that's the first year of this project, and I'm coming onto this project as the project manager. Project was just a lot better, sorry. And my responsibilities are to help the playwright develop the play, making it, so right now he's on his second draft, and we're gonna have a finalized draft pretty soon, which is exciting. Getting some new artists into the space. We're doing artist outreach to more artists of color, Latinx artists as well. And then the next step of that, which is gonna be happening in March when the play actually goes up, is creating programming around it. So we're gonna take one of the original kind of roles of Bag and Baggage, which used to be a bit more of a touring company, and take a scene of the play to different parts of the community and have the actors act out a scene and then have a talk back or workshop around it. So really just making it accessible. But yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a bit, but that's kind of the first little bit.
Great, thank you, Yasmin. And finally, we have Nathan Teskey. He's the Executive Director of BeInStar and helped create the Dreamers of Oregon Out of the Shadows Traveling Photography exhibit. Nathan has worked for over 17 years in Latino-serving organizations in Portland metro area, including El Programa Hispano, Hacienda CDC, and now BeInStar. Nathan led the charge to develop the Portland Mercado in Portland's east side, which is our region's first Latino public market. He has been BeInStar's executive director since June of 2017 and has repositioned the organization to be a player on both affordable housing and immigrant rights issues. Nathan, please tell us more about the Dreamers of Oregon project.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me as well. This project is a traveling exhibit that has images, as you can see, and stories about 10 dreamers or DACA recipients. I guess I'll have a chance later to tell you about how it originated. It originated with a board member in my organization who's a DACA recipient. The purpose of the exhibit, can I say that, is to reach a variety of communities. We've had it travel to 7 locations. We have 3 more scheduled in the next few months, and to raise awareness about the injustice of canceling the program, the DACA program, and the impact it has on people. It also tells the stories of the 10 dreamers and their aspirations and their dreams, and they're very compelling. At least I believe they're very compelling stories. And we were very delighted to be able to develop a project to share that. It's been at the City Hall here in Hillsboro. It's been at Pacific University in Hillsboro and Forest Grove. It's been in this building on Tuesday or Thursday with we have the art walk down here. So it's been around, and I think thousands of people have seen it, and we think it's having a real impact.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to learn a little bit more about these projects. So I'm going to start the questioning. So the first question is for Nathan, Paolo, and Yasmin. Tell us more about how did this project or your project come about? What was the inspiration and the original goal? So why don't we start with Nathan?
Yeah, so in September 2017, the president canceled the DACA program. Shortly thereafter, we had a committee meeting of our board, and one of our board members, Brianda Alcazar, who's a very inspiring young Latina woman, spoke up and revealed, and I think some of the board members didn't even know this, that she was a DACA recipient, and that her future was somewhat in limbo as a result of the cancellation of the program. She was graduating from Pacific University with a degree in chemistry and had plans to go on to become a pharmacist at Pacific University. So she had very clear, concrete goals. She was being successful in her academic studies. And it was very compelling to me, and I think all the people in the meeting, that she revealed this. So from that, we learned quickly that in the Guinness-Star residential communities that we had, that many families were affected by this cancellation. So it was far from just one person, it was many, many people. But Brianda was the original inspiration. And we had a connection to a local photographer who was willing to do some of this work pro bono. And so we just started going from there. We just felt we had to respond to something that we felt was a grave injustice.
Thank you. So Paolo, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just curious, before I continue to talk about the night market, has anyone here ever heard of the night market before or been there? Oh, look at that! What's up? Okay, cool. That's exciting. So just starting out first, I mean, it was the first night market, and I remember meeting this lady. She's from Salvador, and she says, "Paolo, I make the best pupusas you'll ever taste. I really want to sell them here." I'm like, "Dope! I want you to do that too. I want to try them." But hold up, we got to go over these barriers first. You need to get a food license, you need to get a business license, you also need to get specific types of insurances. Oh, you're deep frying things? Well, that has some requirements as well. These can be really big hurdles for anybody, regardless where you come from. I would say tenfold if you grew up in a different country. And so that was really what this night market started as. Again, economic opportunity to give people the tools and resources so that they could actually thrive with their business. On top of that too, yes, we want to really bring visibility and highlight the cultural, the different backgrounds that we have in Beaverton. And I say similarly here in Hillsboro as well. Just for some context, 1 out of 3 people in Beaverton identify as a person of color. 1 out of 5 were born in a different country. And I would argue though that we could still be doing so much more to be engaging with those folks and having them at the table. So there's that piece of it that came from the DEV. Also, there's the Vision Action Commission, it's another board of the city, and they work on the community vision plan. So in 2009, they spent a year engaging the community, door knocking, surveys, you name it, they did it, to find out what do you want to see from the city of Beaverton, what do you want us to be focusing on, where you want us to invest our resources. And so they came up with 5 themes, and out of those 5 themes came over 100 and something key action items. And one of those 5 themes were community building, an action item being engaging more with people who are typically not at the table. And so the communally, the night market fit in very well with that. And also our counselors, one of their big priorities was cultural inclusivity and bringing most historically marginalized to the table and giving them opportunity as well. So basically to wrap up, putting together, we had that support in so many different fronts. We were able to launch the Beaverton Night Market.
Great. Yasmin, you want to go and talk about your project?
Yes, so one big thing to note is that in the city of Portland and kind of the surrounding areas as well, there's a big cultural shift happening in theater right now, in which the theater companies are recognizing that they need more diversity on their stages, whether that means race, gender, sexuality, age, everything. So all of the theaters are doing a lot of amazing work, and Bag and Baggage is taking it, I think, an extra step, which I'm really, really proud of them. Because they're not only asking, how can we make our stages diverse, they're also asking, how do we make our audiences diverse? And so that's kind of where this project originated from. That they were like, I want to have a play on stage that represents people of color, their stories, but we also want to reach out to the community and engage them with it. It's not just about having it on the stage. And so I actually was part of the selection committee when we first started choosing the plays. And it was just exciting to be in that room with about 13 other people just talking about the possibilities that these plays were going to bring. And as of now, we have the new this year and next year selected. And it's just really exciting to see the people who are reaching out to us on behalf of that. So one of the other things that just having conversations with Scott is that we've recognized that Hillsboro, like Paolo was saying, is a diverse location. The surrounding areas are very diverse, and it's just important to be able to connect with them as well about it. So one of the things, like I mentioned, was we're doing a lot of outreach for this project and engaging with different communities, which I know I have a little bit question later to answer about that, but I just wanted to bring up the importance of that. That was a lot of group of people that were coming up to Bag and Baggage and asking, how can we actually get connected? It wasn't just a theater company saying, this is what we're doing and it's going to be the solution to everything. It was really a community effort. That was kind of the motivation behind it all. I'll have a couple more things to say a little bit later, but I think that's a really good place to start for me.
Great, thanks, Yasmin. So our next question is for Eduardo, Bernie, and Nathan. So were there any unexpected consequences or surprises with the project? Did the goals change or evolve? So Eduardo, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, first I want to say thank you to Nathan, Jasmine, Bernie, and Paolo, because people like you are a huge inspiration for a guy like me. So with that said, I was a little bit lazy to apply for the program. I was previously invited to apply for the GLEAN program, and I didn't do it just because I'm busy. Whatever the excuse. So anyway, I decided to do it just because as an artist, I like to explore and I like to go beyond, my comfort zone in that sense. So, but then when I started, when things started flowing through the program, it helped me to realize that there is a bigger purpose, there is a bigger, thing. That I don't know how the other artists that have participated in the GLEAN program experience that, because that program has been around for almost, I think this was the 8th year that came from San Francisco originally. So it helped me develop that sense of responsibility, how to engage with community, how do I encourage and motivate young and emerging artists like me to do something good, to do something, that can really make a difference in our society. So, yes, it definitely evolved and changed in a way that I was not foreseen before.
Great, thank you. Bernie,
So let's see, were there any unexpected consequences or surprises? Did the goals change or evolve? I'll start with the second part. I wouldn't say the goals changed because we really didn't know what to expect going into this. Our intention was just to have something for the community that would bring people together to share a common experience that would recognize our own diversity across the community. And we didn't know how that was going to manifest itself. We would just seen this thing on the web. We thought this seems like it will work. So now turning that back to an unexpected consequence. I think the people that came were surprised because since you're going through and looking at these 32 identifiers and saying, which of these things do I relate to or do I not relate to, and do I do them in combination or are they exclusive of one another? And his families did it together, because a lot of times they were, multi-generations doing this together. They'd have their balls of yarn and they're all following each other around. And they'd realize, well, we'll have different opinions, and that's okay, that's part of the process too, but it was really fun watching people kind of bumping into each other, dropping their yarn, going, oh, I'm going that way, and I'm going that way, and it was kind of fun, but I think what we realized is that you didn't know what to expect until it was all done, because it wasn't until the end of the journey that you'd ask yourself all those introspective questions. Am I this or am I that? Am I this or am I that? How do I really feel about that? Do I identify with that? Or is it just something I kind of have thought about? So how do you identify or relate to the word identify? What does that mean? How strongly do I have to place myself there? So you could just see people pondering, and I think what they thought was going to be, oh, I'm just going to wind this stuff around the poles and we'll make something pretty, like another pretty face. It was a lot deeper than that, and I think when they came away from it, they realized they were different because they had a different understanding and recognition of themselves and all the different aspects of themselves that they hadn't thought of quite so discreetly before.
That's great. Thank you. Nathan.
So Benistar is not an arts organization. I'm not an artist, and so we, as I think you got a sense in my earlier remarks, we just kind of decided to do this a little bit by the seat of our pants. I mean, we had this. We knew there was something that should be done. We had this connection to a person who was an artist, and she was willing to work with us. So when we did it, I don't know that we exactly articulated goals, other than that we wanted to respond to something that we felt was unjust and make some sort of statement, and also lift up people who were part of our community who were being attacked, and so and show their aspirations. So I don't know that we had exactly very clear expectations in terms of what the consequences would be. I will say, as far as it evolving, the project in our case continues. We will be continuing to have the exhibit travel around the metro region, and we are also now where we have received a grant from the Regional Arts and Culture Council to do a documentary video, One Family. So we'll be doing that in the next few months, and so. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, and I don't know if that's responding to the question, but that's just how we've been doing it.
You did just fine.
Okay.
Okay, so our next question is for Paolo and Bernie. Would you call your project a success, and how did you measure success?
Sure.
So, Paolo?
Did you say me?
I did.
Okay, cool. You want to go? No, jeez. First off, with starting out the night market, Mari is way too modest. I'm calling her out right now. She said I was a founding member of the Diversity Advisory Board. She was too. And so she was there with me when we were starting the DAB. And I remember when we were stressing about turning out 500 people. End of the night, we had over 5,000 people. It was cluttered, it was chaotic, it was sweaty, people were bumping into each other, and I would not change a thing. That's what the market is. So, yeah, I'd say it was successful. And it's grown every year since. How do we measure success? Well, of course, there's the numerical values, right? How many people did we engage? How many stakeholders do we have? How many more partnerships did we create? But I would like to focus more on the very thorough debrief and check-in process we have specifically with the vendors. So this, again, is focused on the vendors, right? And so after the market especially, I was sitting on the phones or in person with these vendors, interviewing and having discussions about what's next for your business? What's going on here? And so I have these pretty graphs that somebody much smarter than me made. And I'm not gonna read them all, but just for example, from this last market, we have 17,000 people at that one. 40% of the vendors said that this is a business where a majority of my income comes from that supports my family. And so getting them to the level to where now they have this license, now they have this location, is extremely, that's huge. And then just below that, or almost 30%, a lot of people were saying that this business has actually been a hobby of mine, but it's been a dream to turn it into a more legitimate business. And there's more that I won't talk about since I think I'm running out of time. But I will say too that, while yes, we had a lot of the success, there's many growing pains. And so I'm speaking specifically from the point of view of working for local government and working within very bureaucratic systems. Coordination with stakeholders, the infrastructure, putting it together, working with our police department for the safety concerns, shutting down roads, the traffic enforcement, local businesses. Some businesses were angry that we were bumping music at 10 p.m. Happens. Volunteer coordination. I don't know where we would be without our volunteers. And so on top of that too, with trying to coordinate so many different little things, one of the biggest, I think most important pieces of this is still staying true to the original mission. Sorry, I'm cutting. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm the moderator, but I just would like to add one thing to that Paolo didn't mention, is that the city of Beaverton eliminated all the barriers for these vendors to be there. They did not charge them to be there. It was just really their own gas and moving their stuff to the place, and I think that was a huge piece, so that there was never an excuse of, well, I couldn't afford the $200 or $300 for my booth, so I couldn't go. So
people always ask me, how much is it?
Yeah.
So it's costs nothing, but it's a very competitive application process. Just get it in.
Yeah, it's important to remove all those barriers. Yeah.
So let's see, what would we call it? The project a success, and how do we measure the success? I'd say yes, it was a success, and that people said it helped give them a sense of community, and that we were literally all in this together by sharing that experience in public space, but in a way that requires us to do some fairly intense introspection just on our own, kind of out in front of each other, but still kind of in our own heads, to gauge our identification with these signs. I think we all felt it was a glowing success. We want to do it again. We want to do it with more people. We wish we could have cast our net further, invited a lot more communities to come in, to bring in more people. Just a lot more diversity would have been fun. We were happy that we had 500. We're not Beaverton. We're just little. That's almost our whole population. We have 20,000 people. So I thought 500 was pretty good. And then let's see, I'd say how we measure the success. We measure the success as to whether or not we felt it built a sense of community. And based on the comments people had when they came back and gave us their sheets and stuff, they all felt that it had helped move them and help them see the world see themselves and their community in a slightly different way, but in a much more unified way. And so it was kind of a great contrast of both unity and diversity all in the same exercise, and under the guise of art, which made it nice.
Yes, thank you. So for Eduardo and Yasmin, this question is, did you work with any partners on the project? How were they identified? And where did the funding come from to support the project? I'll have Yasmin start.
Okay. So Bag and Baggage received a grant from Meyer Memorial to do this project for 3 years. So they'll be commissioning 3 different playwrights. As I said, we have the first 2 selected, so we'll be doing the 3rd one. So that's kind of where the funding is coming from and where the connections are really starting. But apart from that, it's been really interesting getting to meet the community and finding, these partnerships that at first I was like, when I was hired, I was like, how am I going to connect with all these people? That's so intense. How do you do that? And it's been falling together so nicely. It's just really interesting to see how, Bag and Baggage connects me to one person. They're like, oh, just let me set up this meeting with this person here. And then from there, I'm all the way out at Centro Cultural. And then I'm back here talking to Elemento Latino. And then going back, to Cindy at 12 Valley Creates and talking with her about it too. That everyone is kind of getting really excited about this project, and it's become easy to make these connections. And so, as I said, one of the big things we'll be doing in the spring is taking it at least to 5 different places to do a scene. And already Centro has agreed to do one there. And having those kind of partnerships where they're like, oh yeah, the students here will love to do this over the weekend and have this be presented to them. I'm also being able to make really great connections with some of the local universities and colleges, PCC Rock Creek, Pacific University. It's been really motivating and interesting to see how each one wants to connect in a different way. And some of them want to connect in the sense of bring the project here. Others are like, I just want to know more about theater. I had a really interesting conversation with someone at PCC Rock Creek where they're like, I always thought of theater, but I never thought about the way you can connect it to culture, to advocacy. So come have a conversation with me about it. Sometimes it's those little things about letting people know that, as we said, it's not just about art being pretty, it's about that underlying message and being able to bring that to people and starting these new conversations within that. But did I miss anything else about the question? No, I think that it answered most of it. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in the program, in the GLEAN program, really it's a total of 5 artists. So you don't really can't say that you partner with them because every artist finds its own time to go to Portland Metro transfer station and find its own materials to work on its own projects. Metro and Recology. Metro is also the owners of Metro. Portland are also the owners of Metro in San Francisco. So the program started there, and then they brought it to Portland. So they partner together, Metro and Recology. So you can say, they partner with you, but you have a lot of interaction with the other artists. Like you can go to the transfer station and set up, you have to make a phone call the day before. You go there, you just link your materials, and it can go together with 1 or 2 more artists, no more than 3 at a time. So it's pretty interesting. You don't work with partners through the projects, but there are things. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of connection. You get ideas. You get a lot of that with other artists and other people that you meet there. So it's pretty cool, And this program takes place in San Francisco, like I mentioned before, Seattle, Portland, and Astoria. It would be nice if eventually every city creates those programs like that. But yeah, there's that.
Great, thank you. So our next question is for Eduardo, but I'll have you go last. Nathan and Bernie, what do you think makes art a good medium for building community and addressing social issues? And why did you choose arts and culture as a medium? So Bernie, why don't we start with you?
Well, I would say what makes art a good medium. In our case, it was that because of the way this thing was structured and the way that we welcomed people into, we had like a canopy when they first came in, because the structure was pretty large. It was spread out over 60 or 70 feet in diameter. But they came in and we gave out the yarn and we talked to them and introduced them to the identifiers and stuff. It was totally non-threatening. It's just like, you're going to do this thing on your own. We're not going to follow you. We're not going to watch you. We're not going to write down what you wrote. We're not going to take your card. We did tally up when it was all over and you saw that whole big canopy. We went back and for each poll, we counted how many wraps there were around it so that we know, the most popular ones were I welcome change, I value nature, I believe that my mistakes do not define me. It was kind of interesting which ones kind of came up the most often out of it. But my point is that, and everybody did it, they were getting their yarn, they were going to create their own path through this whole experience, and it was just theirs to know. Nobody else would know exactly what they did or what they said. So I think art, in this case, made it a totally unthreatening thing to do. In the end, there'd be this visual where we would all say, that represents all of us, and each string is one person's path, which is pretty powerful stuff. But it was totally non-challenging, and so there was nothing there that said, you need to be really careful about what you say. Don't say it out loud, you might get in trouble. It was all about just do your thing and feel comfortable with it. We chose art because, we're the Cultural Arts Commission. So no, we just felt that experience with that project, we funded it with a very baby little grant. I mean, even by baby grants, it was a baby grant. I mean, it was just hundreds of dollars and probably hundreds of volunteers. Those of us on the board, we put in a lot of time because we really wanted to give this a good chance of buoyancy and success in the community. So, but boy, it was a lot of great effort on some really devoted people. But I think 500 people in the community got a nice lift out of it, and I think they felt Sherwood was that much more of a community when we were done with it. It's a pretty inclusive area. We've got the high school and the schools. Sherwood's been famous for 20 years for its schools. That's why my daughter moved there from Tacoma, and why we ended up moving there to be near our grandkids, 3 years ago. So Sherwood's famous for its schools. So there's some things that really knit it together. But I do think this experience was one more experience where Sherwoodites could say, "This is our community, and we're happy we live here."
Great, thank you. Nathan?
Well, again, I'm not an artist, so I'm not sure I'm smart enough to answer this question the right way. I think in our case, we wanted through image and story to tell the story of people who are immigrants. And at the risk of making some of you uncomfortable, the president likes to go around calling immigrants criminals. And the people that we featured are people who want to become pharmacists, dentists, bankers, engineers, professions like that. And so we found that by the way, when we did these openings, we always invited one or two of the dreamers themselves to come and speak in person, to tell their stories in person. And that was, I think, very powerful because the people who came to the opening got to hear firsthand from somebody who was featured in our exhibit about it. And I'll tell you, many of them were very emotional. We had a lot of tears shed and a lot of very strong emotion present. So, again, we kind of stumbled onto this idea. You asked, why do we choose arts and culture? I mean, again, in our case, it wasn't as intentional, I think, as some of these other, we just kind of took the ball and ran with it and had an opportunity. So it feels like it's been effective.
Great, thank you.
This is kind of a critical question. Can we have the other people answer? No, because on that question, I'm interrupting. I know it's what we do in the arts. We
There is a
Interrupt this
portion
Maxim.
for audience questions, and I think we only have like one more question after this, and then we'll give a chance. Tom?
Yes, okay. Eduardo, like that.
All right, thank you. I like to be spontaneous like that too. How do we start? Art, for me, this is a personal opinion. For me, art is not a good medium for building a community. For me, art is one of the best ways of building creating good relationships and connecting our communities. For me, is the perfect one. If you look through history, it is through art that we get to know other societies in this world. It is through those ancient, paintings on caves and all that. So art can be found in many different ways today, but before it was developed in a way where, it was telling what was going on in society. And today it still can be found like that, but today there's a lot of things, there's a lot of different ways of making art. And today everybody's an artist. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, so for me, it's not good. It's probably one of the best ways for building community. And then the other thing is that how does art is going to address social issues? Well, if you can incorporate art, and you can teach children in any society to be more creative, that would make a huge difference in the future. And understanding other cultures through art would make a difference, would make less, chaos in this world. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Learning art, learning another language, more songs, more paintings, more any kind of art would definitely impact more our societies. So we need to encourage people to do more art. Our children have to be more creative. There's a lot of rules. I'm not against them, but some of them don't make any sense to me. They killed your society in modern days. It kills, our children's ability to be creative. And we have to fight and we have to go against that. That would make a huge difference in the future. Social issues, of course, everything would change if we change the system, if we change how the structure is being made. And then, why did I choose art and culture as a medium? Well, I didn't. Again, my personal opinion, I didn't really. It's more like I was born with it. I'm a natural. But I feel that I have a responsibility. How do I use it? What do I do with this? Call it a gift or call it a skill, whatever. How do I use it? So it's my responsibility to find ways to engage with community, give my best, and try to make a difference, to make this community, my family, my close friends, and this state, this country, the whole world, a better place. It all comes down to the sense of your responsibility and art. If you do it with passion, if you do it with your heart, art can really, become something very, very spiritual. It is for me, for me, a world without art would be empty, so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So in respect to our audience member, and we are a little bit ahead of time, so I'm going to see if Yasmin or Paolo, if you would like to answer this question as well. So I'll read the question again. So what do you think makes art a good medium for building community and addressing social issues? Why did you choose arts and culture as a medium?
You can go ahead.
Oh, jeez. I was looking at this question, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy I don't have to answer that question. So, thank you. I'm like trying to start writing this down. So I think art really brings people together to build relationships and also offer cultural acceptance and understanding. It's another opportunity for us to build together. It's another opportunity for us to grow together and continue to evolve. I met somebody today, Helena de Crespo. We were talking about language, and out of that too, I also learned that, I'm bilingual. I speak Tagalog, I speak English. I'm learning to speak Spanish right now, un poquito. But I would even argue that, I know 4 languages because I also play instruments. I love vibing with people. I would say I'm one of those who's like, I understand this language, but I don't actually speak it because I don't know how to read music, but I could definitely jam with people, and I love doing it. And so I'd offer that art is also another form of communication, and these days, especially with everything that's happening in the world, we need more love. We need more love, we need more opportunities to try to communicate with each other. And so bringing people together for cultural understanding is, I think, a very overlooked and first step to try to build together. I also just, I really like what Eduardo said about building skills and creativity. I do a lot of improv on the guitar, and I'm sitting in traffic all the time, and I realize, man, I can't improv on my guitar anymore. So I have some beats that come up on the car, and so I've been rapping a lot too. And let me tell you, I've been rapping, I think I've gotten better in speech and debate, and I never lost an argument with my ex-girlfriend. So there's just so many opportunities that art brings to the table. I don't know where I am on time, so I'll end there.
You did say X. Did you realize that X came out of your mouth?
Oh, well, I do now.
Thanks, Paolo. Yasmin, you want to add?
Yes. So to answer this question, I'm going to talk about a little something aside from bag and baggage, because apart from working with them at an administrative level, I'm also an artist myself. I'm a director and a writer. So I do that on the other free time that I find. But actually, 3 years ago, I decided I wasn't going to go to law school, that I was going to pursue a career in art and development, which is a big, scary thing to tell your immigrant parents. But it was this moment, looking at this question, I realized that for me at least, obviously there are other people who will be great, amazing lawyers, but for me that wasn't the path I needed to take in order to advocate for social justice and community issues. I needed a different voice, and for me that was an artistic voice. That was me not writing academic papers about immigration that my parents could never understand. It was about writing a play that had Spanish and music and their language, and they could probably, hopefully one day see it on a stage, even if it was only in front of 10 people. And so art is powerful. There are so many things that can be done with it. And one of the first plays that I ever directed called for a Latinx cast. And I branched the theater company together with the Latino Studies Department, and I brought people into that theater space that weren't there before. Which is why when I was asked to be the project manager for this, I was so excited. Because it was asking me to do that same thing again. And it's hard. It takes a lot of work. But to be able to say, we're creating a piece of art, and tying it back to this, it's not just pretty. It has a meaning. It has a message. And even sometimes, it's not all about the trauma. This play, the adaptation, it deals with myths and stories. It's not always just about us, minorities, oppressed populations, talking about the bad things in our life. Sometimes it's about, this is what makes us us. And art has a lot of power with that. And I'm just so excited to be here with so many people that, are doing that kind of same work. And hopefully, people in the audience that are actually, very excited about that kind of work, or will be after this panel discussion. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jasmine. All right, this is our final question for our panelists, and then we'll open it up to all of you in the audience. So this question is for Yasmin, Paolo, and Nathan. What advice would you give people interested in pursuing a cultural project that addresses issues of equity and social issues? Yasmin, wow. Do you want to go? I'll let you go first.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, this kind of ties into what I was saying anyway, so it's good to just keep going with it. But I think there's two pieces of advice I'd really give. One of them is that it's going to be hard. And you know, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That is really can be a motivator. That when working with Bag and Baggage, working with other theater companies, you sometimes hear that, oh, it's a risk. We're going to lose money, we're going to lose audience. And you have to step back and ask yourself, but who are we going to bring to the table? You know, what new audiences are we going to develop? There's always going to be a risk associated with doing a project like this when it's not really the norm at the moment. And so it's just kind of reminding people that it is going to be hard, but there will be a positive outcome at the end. And then the second piece of advice that I would really give is that you'll find that support system. That sometimes, you know, you go in, when I went in trying to find those people that I'm like, who am I going to connect with? Who's going to want to be involved? You will find those people. Sometimes, you know, they're not vocal, they're kind of hidden within the community, but once they hear about this thing is happening, oh, you know, that's exciting, I haven't heard about it before, they'll come out. And especially if they see that you're making the effort to go to them and make those connections yourself, it's going to become easier. And so it's just about just do it. Really, just take that chance and do it. And find, you know, make your dreams come true, I guess. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Nathan, you want to go next?
Yeah, once again, I'm not sure I'm good a great answer, but just do it. I like that Yasmin said. So I'll go with that. You know, I think the theme I've been picking up from hearing from my fellow folks on the panel is that culture and art have the possibility of building community and connecting people. And at least I think in many of the projects you're helping people see each other's common humanity. And so to me, I think that's a big step towards achieving equity and helping people see each other as equals and as not as something other, but as connected to them. So at least for me, that would be something. I don't know if that's advice exactly, but it's an orientation I think people should have if they're doing this kind of work.
Great. Paolo?
I came here with like one thing and I have three more. The first one being, you know, I really don't like to take the lead on anything, even if I technically have the title of a coordinator or manager of XYZ. No, I don't really see it that way. I think it's really important to make sure that you are bringing the affected communities to the table to make those decisions right there. You know, so I was for Welcome Week. It's different from the night market. I was working a lot with the Somali community in Beaverton, and this community is growing very fast. And so, you know, even though I consider myself a woke person, and you know, I've been organizing for several years, engaging diverse communities, and you know, I'll be so brash to say that I'm pretty good at it. Am I the person who should be making the decisions that affect Somali communities? Absolutely not. They need to be at the table. I need to help create inclusive spaces for them to be at the table to make decisions. I need to make sure that they feel empowered to make those decisions. And so really hanging the ego at the door because you don't know what you do not know, and I'm continually learning every single day with whoever I'm talking to in the community, and I'm making sure that they're at the table as well. Another thing I would just mention, it was triggered just by seeing the folks here, these circles can sometimes be very small. I know everyone on my left. I will probably see everyone on my right. Again, Mari's been like a long time mentor of mine, so speaking in front of my mentor is really intimidating. And is, you know, so really build those partnerships and build off of it and use that momentum. The last thing I'll say, and this really piggybacks off what Yasmin was saying too, is that, I mean, it could be said for many different cases, but again, I'm going to say it from, you know, coming from the city perspective where things are different by design, things take a long time, it's very bureaucratic sometimes, and focusing your work on equity, diversity, inclusion will not be convenient, it will be expensive, it will be difficult, you will fight, cry, everything under the sun. Again, but it's absolutely necessary. It is so absolutely necessary. It is so important for us to be struggling in here so that things could be better outside. Because, it's true, we are a melting pot, and we are community. What did I say earlier? 1 out of 3 people identify as a person of color, but does the city actually represent that all the time? I'd argue and say no. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. Can we give them a hand? All right, so now I'm going to turn the tables to the audience. And does anybody have a question? And before you raise your hand, I just want to say, be sure to wait till the microphone is in your hand before you say the question so that Eric can capture it on the video. So, who would like to ask a question?
Hi, I'm Bridie Harrington. I work here at the Walters. I was wondering if I could hear a little bit more about how you helped people who were participating in the Beaverton market either jump over some of those hurdles to become a small business or mentor them through that process?
Sure. I'd say a big part too is there's definitely a lot of language barriers. There's a lot of cultural barriers that we need to overcome. So even, I know this might not answer directly, they connect, but I wear this little badge here that says that I'm with the government, and that alone could mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of cultural barriers for reasons why people from marginalized communities will not work with the government. My grandma, for example, comes from, she's from the Philippines, but she's here right now because we have friends who are politicians in the Philippines, and it's political season, and she's here because in the Philippines, where she is, political season is one of the most dangerous times of the year. And telling her I'm going into government, it's like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this? And so in terms of wanting to engage with anybody with the city, that's a big no-no. So once we even attempt to get over those hurdles, now we're trying to also just recognize that things just simply work different here. Of course it makes sense to have a food handler's card to put food together, but that's not always, the case where you come from. And things are just weird and slow, and I'd say that's the biggest part. I mean, I do want to reference this survey thing again, that it shares really that you could have this beautiful idea, but for good reasons, there's so many barriers to why that idea might never thrive. And so, what are the physical tools that we're giving them? I have these 3 R's that I like to carry with me since I've been organizing. Once an organizer, always an organizer, and that is giving people the rights, resources, and recognition to thrive to their fullest. I think when we started the night market, we took on, 30 vendors maybe, if that. Now we're over 50 to 60 vendors, and the process it's very, we work with them individually. So we have an orientation of speaking to vendors here or there in the past. I speak to all 55. I spoke to all 55 of them after the night market of what's next. What's the weird license you need to get because again you have a deep fryer or something. Your biggest opportunities for making sales is actually during pop-up events like the night market, or maybe what makes most sense for you with what you're telling me is to actually get a food cart instead of a physical location. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but there's just so many different avenues for for every vendor that, I'd say the biggest areas of support that we can give is the time and capacity to really see each individual vendor through.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Another question?
So I'm curious, and in particular Nathan and Eduardo, all of you can respond to this, but I'm just curious, after going through the project, how are people transformed? If they've been able to participate in your project and respond in some way to a social justice issue, how, on the other end of that, how are they transformed, and what's that process? What did they gain from that process?
Yeah, I guess. Well, you know, I think every individual experiences a program or any activities in a different kind of way. But in my opinion, you know, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of what Paolo was saying. There's a lot of barriers, so you have to cross those barriers first, you know. And then once you're there, that forces you to grow, you know. So when you grow individually, then that gives you the tools and strength to help other people. You know, that I'm talking about my personal experience, you know. So for me, even this panel here, for me, it's a learning experience. The process, this is all the process of growing, you know. So maybe my two friends here have a better answer, but you know, but for me, there's that, you know. Every individual is gonna experience that in a different kind of way. But again, you have to develop that sense of responsibility. How do you engage? How do you what you do with this now, with the experience you're gaining through anything that you are experiences in this society. So for me, it's a win-win. Anything. That's how now the key is to engage with the community, make it better, make our communities more connected, make it, you know, in order for us humans to change things, we have to be all in the same page. So how art, for me, like I said earlier, I'm an artist, so as an artist I can connect with people through art. You know, that's my goal, is to offer that to people. You know, so when people sees my artwork, and as an artist, you know, people often ask me, you know, what's the point? I don't even sell sometimes my artwork. Most of it is not for sale. They say, what's the point then? And I said, well, the point is to encourage and motivate people to create something, to feel better, to share whatever knowledge you have, and make these communities, these societies, a better place for everybody. More diversity, you know, like he said, because there's a lot of people that, you know, if you ask me, in the GLEAN program, maybe for a lot of artists in the Portland area, and we all know that Portland is very white in the artist sense, you know, it's very, very easy for them to apply, you know. So most of the artists in the GLEAN program are going to be white people. Now, that same process for someone with a different background, it's going to be very challenging, very, very challenging. So now that I went through something like that, I can come to those people and tell them, hey, you know what, it's not that hard. You just have to be willing to go after it. And now that is only, you know, an art program, but it's in a different level. What Paolo is doing is just huge, you know. It's involving a lot of people, you know. But the idea is the same. Once you gain experience, once you've gone through something, you can really help others go through that and help them figure out how to get there, or even go beyond that. Thank you.
I think our project maybe is different than some of those here in that our project was somewhat less interactive, like participants. So in our case, you know, I hope that the dreamers themselves who participated felt empowered and inspired. And I, as someone who, in terms of being transformed, for me, I personally felt very encouraged and inspired by many of them, and their willingness not only to participate in the project, but to speak in public venues about their situation and their dreams and who they are, and again, humanize themselves. We didn't have any easy way to measure how people who participated in the audience or who came by were changed or transformed. I don't know how anyone could read about their lives and learn a little bit about them without feeling moved. So I certainly hope that the people who saw the exhibits felt that way, but we didn't have any way to measure that or track that exactly.
Thank you.
And this might be specifically for Nathan because his project touched more on like a singular political issue, and I'm wondering sort of in the age of social media with trolls and online confrontation and even at the events you've had, and with these DACA recipients being sort of vulnerable and being there sharing their story, did you at any time, and anyone else can speak up as well, was there any negative reception or confrontation or any attitudes that you experienced that maybe you thought might be there but surprised you or scared you or
We
scared
had
you?
no trolls. We had no trolls. That I'm aware of it. I think we got, because we have a social media, I think we got a couple of random stray comments through that. We just ignored that. So no, I guess not. The mayor came to one, I'll just say that, the mayor of Hillsboro, and spoke, I thought, very movingly about his feelings about it, and so he was the non-troll. And we also came to the city council. Olivia here is the city councilor, and it was hosted in City Hall for a couple of weeks, I believe, and we were given the opportunity to briefly address the city council, and we had one of the dreamers speak, and she got a standing ovation, which I thought was very wonderful. She gave a very compelling speech. They all, I don't know, I think people tend to rise to the occasion, and so you put in the spotlight, and they really did, so I don't know if that's responsive.
I just make a quick observation. How courageous do you have to get up and speak about that issue in public when you've got, you've got every reason and at the same time no reason, because there could be so much flack coming back your way to identify yourself in such a way that, boy, that's a demonstration of courage, which it happens around us these days because of some of the bizarre things that are happening, but there's so much courage out there. It's just stunning. Sorry, just a little observation.
Good observation. Next question.
I just wanted to say I'm very encouraged by everything that you're doing and what you've been talking about, especially around widening your circles of partnerships. And so my question is, do you see a role for faith communities in these partnerships? And what, if any, experiences have you had with engaging faith communities in the work that you do?
Did you say aging faith communities?
Engaging.
Oh, engaging. I think I'm the only aging member up here, so it kind of caught my ear. Well, in our case, we had some identifiers that related to, I consider myself a spiritual person, I consider myself a religious person, and here's Bernie, kind of helping people get started and stuff. And I was surprised to see that some people, even kids, selected both of those identifiers. I just thought that was kind of funny. I guess I consider if you're religious, you may not be spiritual, because I think of spiritual as being down this path, and an organized religion's over there. But that's not the way these kids thought about it, or their parents. It's like, good for you. I mean, it's your world. You call it, right? So in our thing, we did try to recognize people. We didn't do anything specifically to draw people of faith in. But like I said, when we do this again, we're going to try to cast out a lot more broadly and get a lot more people to come in and see what kind of results we get.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to answer that one too. I wouldn't just relate this not just to the night market, but I will go back to just organizing background in general. And I'm speaking specifically to the work I did. So I used to focus heavily on engaging Asian Pacific Islander API communities in Oregon. And I will say, again, there's the barriers that I talked about, right? With wanting to engage with anybody, government, anything political. But some of the best successes I've had have been engaging folks with the faith community. It's a way to, I guess, gain some trust too, and some credibility of leaders in the faith community are supporting, whether it's a measure or whether it's a policy that we're putting on at City Hall, or whether it's come to this event or go to, there's a big following in there. And honestly, it's sometimes like I've knocked on thousands of doors in my life, but I'd say I've been more successful with partnering with faith communities and being able to actually have conversations with people and actually be heard. So, yes, there's absolutely a role for folks in the faith community, and I'm so grateful for it.
Other question?
This is an awesome opportunity. It's lovely being here with all of you. I just wanted to say something. When businesses, organizations, and government entities create a space and opportunity for programs that encourage arts and cultural activities, they create natural advocates who further the experience to a larger community. From my own experience, I was there at the first Sehe that Mary organized through the Partners in Diversity. I have been part of Beaverton Night Market as a vendor from the very first day, and personally with HAC and City of Hillsboro, been organizing the Color Festival, and it's been, ever since I've been to the first Sehe, I've naturally brought in more professionals of color to come and attend the event. I think 3 of the other vendors that I had recommended Beaverton Night Market to were accepted into the market. I had no say in the selection because I myself jumped on the selection process on the first day that they put up the application. But when organizations create this sort of dialogue and opportunity, we further take this as an artist, we take this further to the communities that we interact with. So thank you for this opportunity.
Another question?
Hello, I found it, I wanted to thank the whole panel. There are many inputs, that I could make, and I think of my mother coming through a refugee background and not being able to do art throughout her working life, and when she retired, being able to return to her, her passion. And I see my daughter, who is an artist and is able to explore what making life better for people and how art can meet people's needs. One of the things I wondered, because there's a backstory to all of this, a journey that you make, and you've told us the outcome in many ways, but the journey is important, and I thought that maybe, I can see this as a book or something like that, or a pamphlet with all your ways in which you work, and wondered what is your next steps? What from the journey that you've made, what are your next steps, or what would you like to see happen, or where would you improve it if you were able to do that? It's a wide question, but I always wonder about this.
Do you want each of them to answer that question?
Whoever wants to.
Anybody want to answer that question?
I've got a real simple, short answer, and that is that we are in the process right now, the city of Sherwood, of working with a consultant and coming up with a public art plan and a public art program. Hillsboro's got a very vibrant public art plan, and we are, again, baby Sherwood. We're just at baby steps. We're just getting started. But we're on this journey, and so public art will have a number of things, and some of those will be interactive displays, some of those will be physical mural things, some will be, mobiles, there'll be lots of different things, but so we're going to step forward and try to find experiences that will be meaningful to the community. I don't think we'll do other things just like the Unity project that I described, because that was kind of specific, and it just engendered all these great experiences collectively for everybody that was there. But we will be putting just more public art out into the community to try to draw people to art. So that's just my short answer compared to what they're going to have to say.
Anybody else want to answer that question?
Well, in our case, the politics are always uncertain, right? Because it was a response to that. We're doing this documentary, which I mentioned of one family, so that's the next step. At one point, we did have a meeting of several of the dreamers and the photographer was involved and a couple staff to try to figure out, because it caught on and we got invited to bring it around, so we couldn't come up with something. And, so I don't know if that's a response, but we are taking it as one next step to develop a video documentary.
We have time for one more question, if there is one in the audience.
My organization, my arts organization, is countywide, and we're very aware that it's a diverse county. And however, the people that participate in it are primarily middle income, white, representation of who we are. We offer, you know, it's an open studio, so we notify which studios are wheelchair accessible. We want to be inclusive, and I don't know where I would like to expand it so it truly is more inclusive. So where would I start for that, rather than, you know, calling different cultural centers, or, I mean, how can I make that really happen? Anybody?
Can I start?
Go ahead.
Right. So that's a very, very cool question. You know, being a member of the Latino artist community in Portland made me right away, right after they invited me to be part of the Latino artist community in Portland, I noticed that even in the Latino community that happens too. It's not only the white community of artists who, you know, middle income people are, you know, artists and they can afford having a studio and all that. There's a lot of good artists out there everywhere in the world. They just can't afford technology or the tools to, you know, participate in programs like that. And some of them are, you know, living in very, very, very poor conditions, so they would never even think about it. But anyway, in the Latino artist community, like I was saying, it happens the same. You know, I noticed that a lot of the artists in Portland are also like, you know, people who is doing well, you know, in this society. But your question just makes me remember something that I've been thinking about. How do we engage with other corporations, with other, if possible, but with other groups of people, with our communities? How do we get all the people who have nobody to represent them out there? You know, even if you go to the cultural center, because maybe, let's say in the cultural center of Cornelius, there is a possibility that they can help you find, you know, Latin artists, and your program can be more diverse. Even so, you're gonna find that kind of, I don't know if it's gonna sound bad, but that kind of discrimination. We have to be more inclusive. How do we get, or, you know, as humans, not because this is not going to be about being white or brown or black or Asian, whatever. This is more about how do we start, you know, seeing each other as humans more than as white and brown and black and whatever, you know, and how do we get all those people that can't afford a studio or art classes, but they are born with a gift, like her daughter. You said your daughter is an artist, so or son, you know, I don't know. So that's a very good question, and I think, you know, when I was invited to this panel, you know, that's the reason I say yes. For me, it's a challenge to come and you know, be part of this. But at the same time, it's very exciting because this is where you make the connections. This is where we start, you know. But it's not only about us here, because most of the people out there are not going to have the courage to come today. And who's going to speak for those people? You know, I can tell you about a bunch of Latin artists in Portland, and your open studios, or all over the area, and your open studios would probably be more diverse, would be more inclusive, but they're doing well. They don't need it. That's the reason they don't apply. But how about the people who have a son and it's a great artist, but they work on the fields? Who's gonna go out there and provide those opportunities that other people doing better in communities is you know, have, or you know, so I think that is, for me as an artist, is a challenge. Is really a challenge. Your program can be diverse, relatively easy, but I think it's not only about the diversity, because there's also a lot of white people struggling. A lot of, you know, pretty much humans struggling. So how do we reach them? That is, for me, the key. And as an artist, that is my next. She also talked about a journey. The journey it doesn't end not because I was part of something or I had success, a little bit of success in any program, that means my journey ended there. No, that only makes you grow, like I said earlier. That makes you grow and gives you the tools and strength to continue and find the right people, So, I don't know, that probably is kind of a lot of information for your question, but I really like your question. And I am now, one of my goals, I have many goals, but one of my goals is how do we get out there and bring that, offer that to the areas of our communities where they're lost, they feel lost, they're not really. So it's our responsibilities as humans to do that, and it's hard because a lot of our communities are suffering from, these are kind of tough times, crazy times for some people. So, well, thank you for asking that.
Anybody else want to answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, Eduardo said so many amazing things, and just kind of going off of that. I think one of the key words is engagement. It's not just enough to say, oh, we need a Latinx person, we need a person of this sexual orientation, so come and fill that void. It's about reaching out to those communities and saying, what do you need? Where do you want to go with this? The accessibility. Sometimes one of the conversations I've had with Bag and Baggage is looking at auditions, which is a very kind of similar process of, well, if you're only, right now they're only getting primarily white actors. They're like, how can we engage more diverse actors? And I tell them that a lot of times when you have the motto of, well, I'm looking for the best, the default is going to be a cis white male because they've had the most opportunities, their resume looks the prettiest, they can, in most cases, obviously that's not a general every single person, but you have to sometimes invest in that actor who's at that 80% level instead of the 100% level because you recognize that they've had those disadvantages and you want to get them to that 100% level. So one of the big models I have is that you have to be willing to invest in minority groups before you can even try to profit from them, which I feel like a lot of organizations are just like, well, we just need to get them in here for grants, for this. Your inner reasoning, your motivation has to be pure, more pure than that, and being able to make those connections. And if you don't have those connections with the community, find someone who does. That's why I'm here with Bag and Baggage. Their administrative level recognized that they're not the ones to do the outreach. So they were like, we need to find someone who can do that. And so it's just about really, really that engagement. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I could add something real quick. Just really simple, meet people where they're at. A few months ago, I was in Kentucky for a conference in Louisville, and after the whole conference was done, I was like, what's Louisville about? Let me figure this out. So I literally, my Lyft driver, I was asking, well, where do I go? What's going on? And going outside of the hotel, hey, what do you like to do when you're here? Where's the popular places to go? And I found out so much that, I came in with a lot of assumptions. I'm guilty. Came in with assumptions of, okay, what's Kentucky, Louisville? I found out a few things. One, the gay community is thriving in Louisville. I found out, they do bourbon really well and, fried chicken. But, I was out till about 4:30 a.m. I also wanted to hear from the community because I've been hearing from the city staff and the mayor in Louisville about, okay, well, we really need to build more with our Black community and the youth community. And I think where I learned the most is when I was out again, around 4 a.m. and I met up with all these, the congregation of homeless Black youth that were there, and they're freestyle rapping, and I said, okay, I'm gonna jump in on it. And I did, and we learned so much, and we vibed with it, we ate tacos, and I kind of missed my flight the next morning, and it was just, we had so much fun together, and I was also, finally, I had that trust. I wasn't about to ask the question of, what would you want to say to your mayor, just going in there, but through vibing with them, through building trust and creating relationships, and actually just putting yourself out. I cannot tell you how important it is. You'd be surprised, even in City Hall, we've worked together for years, but just be human with each other. Just be human, be human. That sounds weird to say. Let's be humans together. Let's talk to each other. Let's ask how we're doing and actually mean it. Not, hey, how you doing? Okay, cool, bye. No, engage with each other. So with the homeless youth in Louisville, I hold them in my heart. I absolutely love them. I pray that I'll see them again someday. But you know, sitting there rapping with them in the middle of the night, eating tacos, and then finally being able to ask those questions. And you bet I emailed the staff, the city staff in Louisville. It was like, hey, this is what I found out. I'm gonna inflate my ego here. I'm gonna say that I accomplished more there than I feel like I did in my first year of work in organizing and trying to just simply engage people, because I don't know. I learned a lot from that. So simply meet people where they're at.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna ask again that we applaud our panelists. To answer your question too, there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, you have some people on the panel that could probably connect you to organizations that are out there, but it really is important that you meet the communities of color where they are at, and you don't go there with the intention of, I need one of you and one of you. It's more about the engagement, engaging them, and then you're talking about what they need, what you need after you know what they are all about, and that network is invaluable because they'll help you in any way they can. But you have to establish the relationship first. This was great. I learned a lot about these projects. I really appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate Tualatin Valley Creates and also the city of Hillsboro for hosting this tonight. So I want to give Cindy and Melissa a good hand. And then I just wanted to leave just a thought. I just scritched a lot of notes tonight, but you know, this was about art is more than just pretty. It can be a great venue and a way to advocate in a very easy way. And I think Bernie said, you know, art is unthreatening, and I really believe that you can make these statements through art, and people are not going to yell and scream as they do if you were to do the same thing in a different situation. So I think art is an important and valuable tool for us, especially now, to help build cultural understanding and build our own humanity. So anyway, again, thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you in another show. You guys have to tell us all about your shows. Right. So anyway, thank you.